Well, here we are. It's official. A long day here coming. My mother's texting me. Did you know all that was coming? Yeah, Mom, I did. A big day here. The United Football League. We got Max here. We'll get other people in. We're kind of finalizing this, getting the links and everything out. Everything just came down. The website is live. We'll get into all of that. Max, how are you feeling here? Let me get this going and let's get your reactions. The United Football League is live.
My head's spinning. I mean, part as not the majority part of me, but a small part of me thought they were just going to crumble it, like they've failed to do the CFL merger, because that's just the way these leagues operate. But you know what? They followed through, and now we have to wait for everything else because there's still so much left uncertain, even after whatever gets handled tomorrow.
Yeah, so just where we're at right now, Danny and The Rock, we're both on the NFL on Fox here, a preview show, talking, and then we're going to get more announcements tomorrow. We're going to get the cities. They did announce, though, that the Birmingham Stallions will be facing off against the Renegades for the kickoff match here on March 30th. Tremendously exciting. Max, were you surprised? And I'm going to get everyone else in. We have some other contributors joining in. Are you surprised? No. I mean, obviously, we're on Fox, but presumably Mike Mitchell had talked about potentially Eric Shanks being involved, or are you surprised that just Danny and The Rock kind of face loading this?
Well, I mean, I don't think Eric Shanks is all that interesting in front of a camera, so I'm not surprised to see Danny and Dwayne doing most of the talking. But I'd imagine Shanks will be quite involved in the actual operations. So
let me get this here, and then I know Mark's reporting some stuff as well. I got to get, like I said, kind of getting all this going. Max, like you said, surprised that this didn't come crumbling down. We're finally here. Are you happy with the UFL League? Let me get the page up here so we can show. Official logo leaked yesterday. Coming up here, it feels a little Fox brandy here. I don't know. What do you think about this?
it feels bland in terms of branding, but whatever. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
I'm glad to see I don't see an ESPN2 logo or a FS2 logo here, by the way. So, as we all knew, no NBC. Good to see the kickoff is what it was supposed to be. And other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can really take away until we hear the teams tomorrow. But I mean, I think we all know what it's going to be, other than whatever the Houston team will be called, and that's not that much of a mystery. You know, it's going to be one or the other, and then everything else is already settled. So we'll just wait it out.
Yeah, so let's recap here. We do this, we've been covering XFL, USFL, CFL, everything. If you're new coming on here, like and subscribe, please. Lots of exciting news coming out. This has been long promised here, the United Football League. We've kind of tracked the trademark applications and all of that. Mike Mitchell reporting, right, 8 cities coming. I think we can kind of confirm that. Been some shuffling. We have reports this week. Hines Ward is out for the XFL San Antonio franchise. It seems like some of the roughneck player staff, at least, will be migrating over there with Wade Phillips and AJ Smith. And then the Houston Gamblers, who I tweeted last night, I will never call them the Houston Roughnecks, kind of acquiring that name. How do you sit with that? I know Andy and I kind of prognosticated over that on our last stream, but now that it does kind of feel like that's going to be how it is. We'll have 4-4. We're going to keep the Houston Gamblers of the USFL, but kind of call them the Roughnecks.
I don't want to be this guy, but the USFL has done something like this before. So the old USFL. So this is just the business of spring football. You got to soothe certain egos. You got to hold on to certain contracts, whatever. And other people are going to want out, and they come up to some of the compromise where they can keep Lindsey Scott with Wade Phillips, with AJ Smith, but not in Houston. Because even though they might keep the Brahmas roster, I guarantee you, with whatever dispersal draft comes up, they're going to find a way to let San Antonio get Lindsey Scott back. Especially since Pittsburgh, the team that got his rights in the USFL, no longer exists. So there's no. I also do wonder how they're going to handle any disputes between players that might have rights between two existing teams. I don't know how that's going to get handled. I'm very curious to see that.
Well, and also, there's been all this back and forth where league contracts are up today. If you're an XFL contract, I know we had the message got sent out. I think Mike was the one that posted it in the chat about that. So, going to be, I feel like even if the contracts are null and void here, when you're coming back in the new year, it's like, hey, we're going to kind of remedy this. It feels like maybe I don't know. Do you get a little strong arm there? Do you say like, hey, you're going to be back with this team or that team?
It's definitely a tricky situation, but it's hard to say exactly what, because we still don't know a lot. So we're just gonna have to wait it out and see what happens. But like we've already talked about how we feel about what we think is going to happen and how we don't really like it. But we have to wait and see what actually happens.
So let's see here. Let's get this in. I know Pat's getting on here as well. So this is the official press release just sent out, theufl.com. I think I have, and we'll get to some comments here. I think I have a backlink order to that, but like, I guess that they got to that first. United Football League, UFL, set to launch as the Premier Spring Football League. Well, that's good because I think we call ourselves the America's Premier XFL or CFL podcast. We have, like you said, the ABC, ESPN, Fox, FS1 logo. Like you said, good not to see ESPN2, good not to see FS2, good not to see. I mean, not that we get Peacock or kind of any of that stuff. Good to see. We had talked about NBC kind of being off of all of this, and so them not involved here moving forward. Russ Brandon to be president and CEO. Daryl Johnston will lead football operations. I know there had been some questions about that, kind of what Daryl Johnston's role would be. UFL season kicks off Saturday, March 30th with the battle, and this to me is tremendously exciting. Arlington Renegades versus the Birmingham Stallions. Max, reactions to that is kind of the kickoff game. We'll get Pat in here.
Well, it's the only obvious one. You're right, champion versus champion. You always want to start the season that way. So I'm just glad to see they made it the simple choice.
We got Andy here, the professor, hopping in. Andy, I think we'll do, spoiler alert, Winter Classic, New Year's Day tomorrow. Not the greatest time for the Markcast here to be doing. I will be up at, I'll be probably, you won't want me on a live stream here by the time that they announce this on game day. Andy and I are going to do a live recap sometime Tuesday, depending on the professor's schedule, kind of, recapping all of this once we get to that point. Andy, how are you reacting? And then we'll get Pat's thoughts.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say, gentlemen, Happy New Year to all of you. I'm glad to have you all here again, one more time around the sun. And listen, I wanted to say a couple things. First of all, I don't have it on me, but I would like to have in future streams to have a bottle of Terramana tequila to pour one out for those poor souls who really thought that Danny and The Rock were not going to be involved with this operation. Sorry, guys. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here for you. But yeah, look. I mean, it's finally something. It's something. Finally, there's something concrete that finally happened after months and months and months of back channeling and talking. So at least it's here finally. I think that the decision to keep on the ownership makes sense. The decision to have Daryl Johnston on as football operations makes sense, especially with all of his work with Fox, of course. If he's still willing to do so in conjunction with all of his other duties, that makes sense. Keeping Russ Brandon, I think, is important as well. His connections, obviously, within the NFL and all of his other connections as well. I think that makes a lot of sense. So for me, I mean, it's just more of just the overlay of all the people. I was a little surprised. I guess the only thing that I think was probably not, I didn't know if I could expect it, but I think was nice was the fact that they announced who was playing the first game. Obviously, the Renegades and the Stallions. First thing, whether it's in Birmingham or whether it's in Arlington, that remains to be seen. But the fact that you have your two champions from both leagues playing each other, that's a fantastic way to roll out the league and to tell people already two of the teams that are in the league. So on that note, I mean, at least it's just something, right? That's all I'm saying. At least it's just here. It's concrete. It's real.
Pat, how are you feeling? Yeah, I guess that, yeah, I mean, again, if you're joining this stream now, like we know the team, we kind of know all this stuff, but Pat, what do you think here? I know you were going on before live and then hopping over here. I appreciate that. I mean, we have stuff here.
Yeah. And that's what we have. We have stuff. We have validation of information, but this information isn't really for us, right? Like we keep tabs on this every day. We care about it way more than the average bear. Like this is for, John Q and Susie Q taxpayer that were watching Fox in their pregame and they're like, oh, this is cool. Like, I'm going to watch this now. And I think they did a good job putting it on Fox because obviously, you know, everyone's watching pre-games, and you know, if they had a deal with CBS, they'd probably do the same thing too. And you know, now that we're getting the conglomerate of like the ESPNs and now Fox together, I think we're, God willing, in a better position than we were, you know, 24 hours ago to actually have sustainability. And you know, that's pretty much what he said was, you know, we're trying to do this, and then he went on his player 54, you know, thing, which is always cute because if you know, that he was player 154. But you know, in the end, we have concrete evidence. We have, you know, a lot of validating concerns are now put to bed. You know, they came out, they said something, and there have been these leaks for the last couple of days and weeks that have really, I think, committed more harm than good because of a lack of transparency. But in the end, like, you know, beggars can't be choosers at this point, right? And at least they had the, you know, ability to give us officially 2 teams, even though, like you said, everyone knows the teams. But, you know, I think it kind of, you know, gets us over the Christmas hump, and it was a good thing to do it during an NFL pregame. So maybe they, you know, stole a couple hundred viewers from that, you know?
Yeah, I kind of have my qualms, and I think, you know, for even though I'm watching the Commanders here, hopefully draft picks will get won by the 49ers. Would have been cool to have that go on here. Andy, well, yeah, Andy, give your point, and then we have some comments I want to get to, because like, and if you have something you want to comment, like I opened this up and there was already like 1,000 comments. So if you have anything, post it here at the bottom. We'll do it. Teams will be announced tomorrow on game day. The Rock said that. I imagine The Rock could be a part of that. I mean, he did that with the whole Pat McAfee crew and all that. Andy, what's your point?
Well, I just wanted to say real quick, the timing for The Rock was actually dead on perfect. And the reasoning being is because this celebration for Jimmy Johnson that was happening at the beginning of the show, obviously getting inducted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor, which happened just last night on the Saturday night game, and then him coming back to the studio and being a part of the camaraderie and being able to celebrate that with him was really, really special. I think for Dwayne Johnson, that was perfect. He walked up to Jimmy Johnson and gave him his original letter of intent when he wanted to go to the University of Miami. Obviously, Jimmy Johnson, you know, moved on and did his thing in the NFL, but obviously they're connected in that way with their Miami relationship. So from a transition standpoint, it was perfect because he walks in, he gets to celebrate Jimmy and then say, hey, by the way, I'm doing this. That timing is perfect. That could not have been timed out any better. That made for really good TV. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, Jacob says here, at least they didn't have coward announced. I know I was like, it was so like, I was my Fubo sometimes when I pull it up and it was like it had started the stream the hour earlier. So I'm sitting and watching. I'm like, what is going on here? And then luckily I caught up. Right.
I was like, okay, like I linked yours and mine like 3 times. I was like, hey, I'm not trying to, you know, granted your audience way bigger than mine, but I'm like, but as soon as 11:15 hits, we're going over here, and then at 11:30 we're going over here, and then 40 we're going over here. So I think I put yours in the comments like 4 times, like, hey, like, let's not cannibalize, let's all eat on this, you know.
No, it's good. I appreciate it. Yeah, we got like 170 people watching. You know, like and subscribe on here. Get over on Pat's Analyze and Educate. Pat comes on here a lot and does all that. Max is moving on to big boy things here, so we're kind of getting him here. Max is going to be busy. And then, like I said, Andy will be around. Going back through the comments here, exciting people seeing The Rock and kind of all that stuff. To me, this is, we've talked kind of the best chance, right? We got Fox, we got The Rock, we got all this synergy. Max, did you like that? Because I know there was all this debating, like, are they still going to be involved? And they're out, and like this feels like what was supposed to be. You know, maybe 2 years later, Fox hadn't rushed and kind of done all this USFL stuff and tried to one up. And if we had just done this from the beginning.
It really feels like I still to this day do not understand why the Fox decided let's launch a whole other league whenever you could have Dwayne and The Rock and a sports private equity group and yourself all running a league together, and you could just come up with some compromise. But you know what? At the end of the day, this was probably the only possible path from an exposure perspective to actually get the league to homes as quickly as possible. And any other way to build up a league would have been a much slower grind. So it's unfortunate that we've lost all these teams. These players have lost jobs. These coaches have lost jobs. Employees, all these people have lost jobs. And we can never lose sight of that. But for a long-term spring football league, this is probably the best shot these 2 groups of people could have come up with.
Yeah, Andy, similar thoughts on that? Like I said, it feels like we went a long way to kind of get to this point.
We did, and I mentioned this also on the show last week. Obviously, the thing is this was just such a parallel universe kind of moment because I mean the transition periods. The thing is, we almost had this happen in 2020. If the AAF had actually known how to manage their finances and actually do the right thing, we would have run into the same problem with the XFL and the AAF in 2020. That didn't come to pass because the AAF was more akin to the older style of how leagues were run, where it was very much a lot of hope, but not a lot of production. 2020 XFL was a lot of production, but then a very unfortunate thing happened in the world that prevented it from going forward. And I feel like had that not happened, I mean, I don't know if this happens earlier or if Fox decides that they don't need to have the necessity to create their own league. I don't think they do. Like if that doesn't happen, if 2020 doesn't happen, then Fox never goes through the whole USFL thing. That just doesn't happen at all. There's not even a forethought of that idea coming through. What I'm just curious about is, did they find that, was it like what amount of, I know we use this word a lot, but what amount of ego was there in the room for both sides? I mean, did they not feel like they could approach a group like Danny and The Rock, or did they feel like they just could run their own league? And I know it was a lot of cost cutting measures. Obviously, they wanted to save money. They wanted to run their own operation. Obviously, the spring league was around. That was a whole operation with Brian Woods, who's not even around for this. This time around. I mean, there's so many different factors here. Obviously, talking to the CFL, and which was in dire straits for a while there and not playing its 2020 season. I mean, the landscape, I think, was just shifting so much simultaneously that I don't think anybody really had an idea of where they were going to go forward. If the world wasn't the way that it was in 2020, I don't think this happens. And I think a lot clearer perspective kind of comes through, and people are able to sort of, be able to kind of schedule out what's going to happen in the next 5 years. But I don't think people were thinking like that. I think people were thinking now, can we get a league? Can we just get something on TV? Can we get something there? And now you don't have to think that way anymore. But I agree that it really made this whole thing really and I don't want to say unnecessary, because we had a lot of great football, a lot of great moments, a lot of great people. I've made a lot of great connections to this whole thing, as much I'm sure all of you have, but for the sake of all the headaches, it just feels like there could have been a lot more avoided. But I also understand that the world was just different 3 years ago too, and people were just not thinking the same way.
Yeah, and running through, Philip had a question here talking. You're right. So we know Birmingham. When they announce the cities tomorrow, I assume the teams are with that. But also, I would, you're very good educated guest to be like, we're keeping the same teams, even if you're a casual fan here. We're not rebranding the San Antonio, kind of all of that stuff. In terms of the 8 teams that we know, and then we'll get to Pat's thoughts, because there was a question here, like, does Seattle sneak in? Like, I'm telling you, Seattle is not making it for a variety of reasons here. Feel pretty strongly about that. But the 3 Texas teams, and then obviously the one Houston back and forth, so Houston will be the USFL franchise, and then DC, St. Louis, and then Birmingham, Detroit. Pat, a question for you. Dorothy and I were talking about this last night, because I still, we're merging these and we're kind of taking what worked at both of these leagues, but I don't want to be the XFL homer here, but when you look at Birmingham, Memphis, Detroit, and then a non-Houston playing franchise, like, it feels like Fox is bringing the TV partnership, right? And not necessarily like, here are our strong franchises outside of potentially Birmingham, but in terms of market size, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think Memphis, in my opinion, and guys, interject if I'm off base here, I think Memphis is kind of wild. Sorry about that. It's kind of a card in this, personally. I feel that Memphis, along with Michigan, has the potential to really boom at one point. And when I say boom, I don't mean 70,000 people at a game. I mean, like, between your 20 and 30,000 people. The biggest thing I always come back to with these markets is, what are we doing with all these refunds and season tickets and whatnot? Because the USFL, these games are so cheap, and they were giving tickets away in 2022. I don't know if they did it in 2023, but you were able to go grab like 5-6 tickets for $60 and have decent seats and whatnot. And even during when Memphis and Birmingham were having decent crowds at these games, you could still get a good seat for multiple seats for $60 and whatnot. So I'm very curious to see on the season, on the ticket aspect, what's going to happen. I do think there's potential in Memphis. I do think there's potential in Michigan, especially with how good the Lions are. And I think that fan base up in Detroit, because of even the Tigers being so bad, do you really want to go to, Comerica or whatever it's called up there and see Detroit? Or would you rather go to see a competitive football game, especially if you're such a pro football guy? Maybe you can factor in how Michigan's doing to keep people so hungry with the Lions, the Wolverines, and now the Panthers. If they're competitive, I think that could really be viewed, as potential and whatnot. Memphis, to me, I mean, I think it's a boom or bust place. I think, if they had 20,000 people at every game, wouldn't surprise me. If they had 10 people at every game, wouldn't surprise me. And I don't know if that's like an easy cop-out answer, but I think it's the reality of the situation. Birmingham, to me, do they feel a little scorned that they're leaving but not leaving, if that makes sense? I think there was a lot of community engagement that they've done over the last 2 years. I don't know what that parade looked like. It looked like there were people there. I know the people who care about it, and I know that's kind of a, once again, a very vague answer, but I just, people were kind of used to having Memphis or the Stallions there over the last 2 years. Are we taking a step back for the survivability for that market? Do we see a drop off? But the biggest factor is we don't know what numbers are for the USFL teams. So we can look and do a visual and be like, okay, week 1 when the Generals were there in 2022, it was you guys were there. It was a good crowd. 2023, it looked pretty good. But the biggest thing I always knocked on the Birmingham market was, especially in year 1, you asked people to go to 40 games for 10 weeks in a row. That's not reasonable, and even if you love the Stallions, if the Chiefs played 10 minutes away and played all 16 games in Birmingham, 10 minutes away from me, no matter how much you love the Chiefs, you're going to want to do something else, man.
I want to get, and I know, Max, we were kind of getting the stream set up. I want to get Andy's thoughts. This is kind of what we expected in terms of the announcement. Hey, stronger together, more football, more opportunities. Was there anything about the actual branding messaging today that if you had not heard about the XFL or the USFL, that's going to incentivize you to watch this league if you're a casual football fan? Because this is what we were trying to attract today.
I mean, to me, it spells as just another league. If you're a casual person, it's just another league. But I mean, for the Fox, I like that they put up the graphic with the players that had played in both the XFL and the USFL. I think that's important. You need to continue showing that connection. Okay. And I know we joke a lot about throwing out the moniker, oh, spring football works. I mean, I know a lot of people like to go to that well a lot, and it's true. I mean, it does work in a lot of ways. It gives opportunity to a lot of guys. I mean, Brandon Aubrey is having an amazing season for Dallas. He's doing unbelievable for them. I can't believe that. I know. But really, to kick that many field goals and not miss one is insane. 35 for 35.
Except that first extra point.
Except for the extra point. But then, and then Kevontae Turpin is still hanging around. You have it, but it's more just, it's giving people the opportunity to even be on rosters. I know it's not as sexy if guys aren't doing as much in the next league, if they're just on a roster spot, but that's what we care about, obviously. But for the casual fan, I mean, it's just a matter of, well, it's another thing to do or another thing to watch. And the inherent skepticism, as it always is how long is this going to last? Okay. And that's fair. That's completely fair. Right. How long is it going to be alive? It could be gone next year. Did any of us in this room have any idea, first of all, if the XFL was going to get its legs off the ground at the beginning of this year? And second of all, did we think both of these leagues were going to disappear by the next season? We had no idea. Zero. I mean, this is as fluid for us as it is for anybody else. So I don't blame people for having a healthy level of skepticism with this entire genre of sports, right? It's its own unique identity. And it's cool because it's very innovative and it's very exciting, but it's very fluid in terms of its existence. So how do you keep people around besides just the initial boom of ratings when the first game kicks off, how do you keep these people around? More importantly, like you said, how do you keep these communities involved? You need to keep these individual communities, like Pat said. Can Memphis buy in? Can Birmingham buy in? The one thing that I thought of too that teams don't have is they don't have traveling fans, right? That's the thing. You don't get those people from out of markets traveling to your games. Like even in the NFL, Carolina Panthers are terrible. They're awful. I would not even buy a 50-cent seat, not $50, 50-cent seat to go to a game there. But you know who filled up that stadium last week? Packer fans, because Packer fans travel. They have an identity and they have a tradition. They travel. These smaller leagues don't have that. You can't just be, even in Birmingham, I don't even know if I could sit there and confidently say, well, a bunch of Battlehawks fans will show up if they play here. Will they? I don't know. I hope so. But I can't guarantee that. They're not going to travel on their dime just for that. So I think that's the biggest thing. Can you get you really have to dig in and see who you have at the local level and support you in the games that you play.
We're having a debate here in the chat, XFL versus USFL rules. Feel free to kind of add into that. Curious everyone's thoughts. USFL 2022 rules were kind of the XFL rules that they wanted to take, which I always thought was interesting. Max, I want to get to you. So I'm looking here because we get a lot of questions like, are we rebranding teams? Are we doing any of this stuff? This year is we're just getting through this, right? Even if you look, and I'm kind of been peeking around here on this website, right? So we have the press release, and I want to go back to the quotes just to see if there's anything on there. But we have the UFL, people saying that kind of looks like the UFC font family here, but even this down here, we have a link to the USFL shop, then we have a link to the XFL shop. But I did think this was interesting. We got the XFL. You can't see it. There we go. Copyright XFL. If I get rid of the banner here. XFL Properties LLC. I think that's interesting. Max, what are you making? It really just feels like we're gluing two things together and we're trying to make a car go down the road, at least this season.
Yeah, I mean, this is not going to be completely put together, is it? Even if I'm just hoping that the insurance is taken care of, the players get paid, the players find a way to have a union, the TV product looks fine. They do their best to market locally, and they handle whatever legal stuff they have to with getting this together. And hopefully it looks completely better for season 2. And we have a season 2, most importantly.
Yeah. It was interesting talking with Mike the other day about just kind of this marriage of necessity that both of these leagues needed to do. And it was interesting because, we've lived through all this and the jockeying kind of a power of the XFL people and, they're saving. And I even just had a text here from our friend Farhan. He's like, wasn't this supposed to be the USFL in charge? And, the Rock was just trying to save face, but then you talk with other people and know it's going to be the XFL coming in to save the USFL. Really feels like, as Mike was kind of relayed to me yesterday, how kind of paramount this was that this is going to happen right now. But in terms of just redesigns, any of that stuff, yeah, I think we get through this year and kind of move forward from that. Pat, are you liking? We recapped all the USFL games here over the course of last year. It feels a little Fox light. Does this inspire? Like I said, is there anything? And I know I asked this question before the end. Is there anything about this league that's going to make you jump off the seat now that we didn't, 6 minutes ago or before this announcement started?
I'm not the person to ask because we were going to watch this no matter what, whether to watch the Titanic sink or to see just everything else a part of it because of the players that we've gotten to know that talk with us, the coaches and whatnot. And baseball's kind of in my opinion died in my eyes a little bit. Not that it matters. I'm a Mets fan, so
you were trying. We're trying.
Yeah, I mean, take that for what it's worth. But in the reality of it, baseball, I'm not the person to ask. And for me to give an opinion is not fair, especially, doing the coaching thing and whatnot. Because when I watch these games, I watch it from a passionate level of okay, these players and whatnot. But I also watch the new up and coming coordinators, the older coaches to see what schemes they do. As even being on the media side with the XFL, how involved they allow you to be allowed me to get really invested in it, being on the Zooms every weekend and whatnot. So for me, I don't know if my support of this league will always be around, because so many of these guys that are just grinding and doing so many different things and coming from these smaller schools. And the way college football, and I talked about this on my stream a little bit, the way college football has changed recruiting so much, I think allows this league to be so important moving forward, because guys aren't even like, one of the leagues I cover, the GLVC, it's a Division II league. Everyone knows who Cody Schrader is, right? Cody Schrader came from D2 GLVC. Ben Stratman, TJ Edwards, like these are guys that are getting poached, and not just at, that conference, but all over. So it's like, this is the best shot for a lot of these guys to have a professional career at the D2, NAIA, even D3, FCS, Group of 5 level. Because if you're good enough to go to the NFL, or even if you're not good enough to go to the NFL, if you're good enough to go to a Power 5 school, you're going to ride that out, because your boy's getting paid, $70,000 at a minimum at some of these schools, and not even be a starter. So I'll always support this, man. Like, I know that's a little bit of a roundabout tangent, but hopefully, like I said, having this on Fox adds a couple viewers and a couple ticks in the right direction to where they need to, in my opinion, be 1.5 every game. Like, if we hit 1.5 every game in the spring, it's then, like, I'd like to believe a lot more people are bought in, including the investors.
I don't know.
That's a reach.
Like, I don't want to be I don't know. To me, Andy, this feels like, again, we're, as Pat said, we're not the target demo for, like, is this hitting? I just don't, I don't know. It felt flashy. I go back and forth. Like, I just don't, I hate it. And people, oh, you're the Mr. Negative. Max and I come on here and people are like, oh, you guys are too negative. But, like, were you expecting more? Not in terms of, like, information. I know we're going to get more of that, but just more of, like, this stands out more than the Rocks kind of repeating the player 54 for the 8,700th time.
No, I didn't expect that, because quite frankly, what information we have is what we got, and that's what we know. So I don't think it's anything to expect as far as any spectacular grand stage of of being surpassed of what I would already expect. Like, I think, again, the bar was set by something like the XFL in 2020. That was the bar. But to be fair, for me personally, I'll speak from my experience. That was me getting into the idea of spring football, because I did not have as extensive a history of someone like Mike Mitchell, for example. He's been around forever. He knows what's going on through years and years and years of that. And then, to be fair, I watched things like NFL Europe, and I watched other little leagues, like a little bit of the original UFL, which, again, I want to see if people start digging that up, which will be really funny if people actually end up. Yeah, Pat knows what I'm talking about. He's got the helmet. I was going to say, where's Pat's helmet? I love it. But, things like that. It's a geek thing, right? It's things that we geek out about and we love to talk about, because it is a chance for players like Pat was talking about. I think one of the things that, if you like to follow individual people and their chances and what they get, like if you're a story kind of person, I think this is great. I don't know if you're going to see guys like Kenny Robinson anymore, who, if you remember, Kenny Robinson had to leave West Virginia University because of academic ineligibility, but he ended up playing in the XFL, and then he got drafted. That's not going to happen anymore now with the NIL coming in, the landscape of college football, the economics of college football. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what you're going to see more of is these players who come in and maybe have not played football or don't have as much experience or a D2 level, and those are the guys that are going to get their opportunities. My favorite story this year is Quantez Stiggers, the guy who never played like high school football, and then he plays in the FCF, and which is very small arena like football stage, and then he goes to the CFL. He picked off Bo Levi Mitchell in his first ever game in the CFL. That's insane. Like, that's a Hall of Famer, and you pick him off in your first game. He had a great season, and now people are talking about him getting an NFL opportunity. Like, that's nuts. But there's people like that who are going to get that kind of opportunity now because of these leagues if they stick around. It's just reps, right? It's just getting game tape and reps, which guys don't always have the chance to do. And in a day and age when guys are opting out of bowl games to get better prospects of not being hurt before the draft process, which may or may not pay off, at the end of the day, we still need leagues like this to exist, because there's just not enough time or practice time for guys to develop and really get there. And there's some people who just get to the NFL who are too young or just aren't quite there yet and need a little bit more time. to really build on some of their fundamental skills. And this is why you need leagues like this. But for the casual fan, again, they have to work on their messaging and their marketing if they're going to keep those people around.
A couple comments here, and I want to get to Max. Philip asking, we're talking about the old UFL. Did they acquire the old UFL names? Again, like there's no equity at all in this this past failed kind of, and then there was that scam league and kind of all that stuff. This is totally fresh now. We're just, this is alphabet soup, and they make fun of this in Canada a lot. Like, what can we use? We had talked about the NSFL on here. The other thing was interesting, and I know Andy and I did the deep dive about Jeff Badette's emails and all of that. And yeah, how did that December 27th draft work out? I try to help out here. But in terms of the conferences, I mean, I think that's basically confirmed, right? Where they're saying on there, we're going to have the Arlington Renegades team taking on the Birmingham Stallions team kind of in the kickoff. Max, thoughts on that? And then I want to get your thoughts on both Brandon and Daryl Johnson, so being involved on here. But thoughts on that, kind of getting at least somewhat confirmation about these two conferences.
I mean, we don't. For all we know, it's a rotating schedule with all 8 teams. Like, we don't necessarily know anything about league schedule structure. All we know is who's playing the kickoff game. And even if they are in different, like, it could be just easily South-North with the Texas teams and Birmingham, and then, or West with Texas teams and St. Louis, and then East. So we don't really know, really.
You don't think they're going to do that? You don't think it just makes the most sense to call it the UFL and have an XFL conference and a USFL conference?
No, I think the longer you hang on to the old league, the harder it is to make an identity for the new league. And also, it's going to confuse the living you-know-what out of everyone who is a casual watching this, being like, I'm sorry, the US conference? What? No. And also, the branding wouldn't gel. Would you call it the X conference? No.
Like, you call it the XFL conference in the USFL?
No,
like, it's
the XFC. That sounds like a MMA. XFC. No, this is terrible. No. I'm pretty sure it's going to be geographic divisions or no divisions at all. Maybe West East, maybe North South. I don't know, but either way, not a fan of the idea of having a conference based on past league affiliation, because you need to build an identity for the league you have, not for whatever these teams came from. This isn't the same thing as the NFL, AFL, where the whole reason to do it was because they were adding like 8 or was it 8 teams? I can't remember how many they added, but they added so many teams that there was no point in not distinguishing who was in what conference, because you had to split it down the middle somehow. And also it was easier for them to do divisions that way.
I mean, put it in the chat here. Am I crazy? Because we'll go. I guess I didn't realize this was so divisive, because I still want to talk Brandon and Daryl Johnston here. But put it. Am I, Pat? You were shaking your head. Is this that divisive? I thought this makes.
I think it's us just being edgy personally. But I mean, I agree with Max. Like, he just stop all around hustle. But I think you got to move on, man. Like, geographically, okay. Let's say if expansion comes up and like you do get to the 16-team leagues, like, geographically that does not make as much sense, or if they do go to like the dormant USFL franchises and they're like, oh, okay, we're gonna have the Tampa Bay Bandits and then like the LA Express, and God willing they bring back the Wildcats. It's like, dude, are we really gonna do XFL USFL like type mold on that front? I don't know. I think you just, like, you got to move past it, honor the past. But, I'm a traditionalist in, like, some senses. But, like, I mean, like, negative connotation, this would be the 3rd time the XFL couldn't do it. This is the 2nd time the USFL couldn't do it. Like, yeah, is there rivalries and stuff like that? You could take advantage of that. But what do you mean? The rivalries are between the players. Like, they're not between the actual franchises and whatnot. I don't know. It's not really united if you're keeping them, separate. in a weird way, right?
It's like the NFL. You have I don't know. I just, to me, it's like we're merging. This is we're getting around to the Super Bowl era, but in the span of a year and a half or so. I really had no idea this was so divisive. This comment did make me laugh, and I want to get Andy's thoughts. I feel bad for the Bandits fans. they're totally, because at least we might be putting the Sea Dragons to bed for a little bit. I mean, the Bandits, like, you're off live support now. Anyway, Andy, what do you make of this conference? I had no idea this was so divisive. We have we have our boy Royal Retros commenting here. I had no idea this was so divisive.
I mean, I understand the sentiment, since I covered the Bandits for a year and they disappeared. So I know what it's like to just it's covered dying entities. I get it. I look, the whole AFL NFL thing. Because I went back and I actually went and decided to read into it further. I have a lot of extensive NFL historical knowledge. That's kind of how I got into football. For the AFL, to answer your point, Max, there were 8 teams originally in the first 5 years of the AFL, and then they added a 9th, and then they added a 10th before the merger happened. But here's the biggest difference, guys. It's the thing is about all this is those teams were individually owned. There's no individual ownership in spring football. That's the difference here. Those owners went and bought those properties or created those properties because the NFL, there was not enough space in the NFL to have those. Like Clark Hunt obviously was one of the most famous examples, and trying to start a team in Dallas and then getting jettisoned to Kansas City famously. There are examples of this in history, yes, of merging 2 entities, but that is first of all, the economics of football were drastically different, and there wasn't a bidding war. I mean, there was a bidding war for players. There's no bidding war here because there's a better, more profitable league that exists that allows players to go on if they want to make their money. So that doesn't exist. As far as like the whole, the conference talk thing, I mean, it's cute, but at the same time, like it would be very tribalistic. And as we've experienced personally, there's a lot of tribalism that goes on in this space. And I don't think it would be it just wouldn't be the same level of competitiveness that the NFL and the AFL had, where you had people, both sides had quality talent. They both had fantastic talent, even though the NFL was a very high, mighty, superior entity and saying, well, we've been around longer, we know better, we're better than you, which was proven very, very wrong by the 3rd Super Bowl when Joe Namath decided to change history. But that's obviously very different extenuating circumstances. So would I want to have separate conferences? I mean, sure, as far as like camaraderie, but then again, like nowadays, does anyone care about the AFC and NFC rivalry? No. I mean, it's just the Super Bowl, right? Like you care about your individual rivalries, your divisional rivalries, but you don't care about like, oh yeah, we've beaten this conference this many times in a row or whatever. That doesn't really hold water anymore. I think that's gone away. So I mean, if you want to make something of it, sure, but I don't think it doesn't have the same weight to it as it did before with the AFL and NFL. It's just very different.
I mean, I'm just laughing here going through I really had no idea this was that. We'll give this one here, Tim Owlett, Flight Decks Podcast. When CFL expanded to the U.S., there wasn't a USA division and the Canadian division. Stick with Geographic. Maybe there should have been, Tim, and then we could have had, maybe that was the problem. Max, hop back in on this, and then I want to talk about other stuff here. But I had no idea this was.
Yeah, I mean, and also think about it. If they end up calling the Houston team the Roughnecks, then you're going to have 5 brands, even if it's not rosters, 5 brands from the XFL and 3 from the USFL. So then it'd be weird to have the Houston Roughnecks in the USFL division or conference, or the USF conference. It doesn't make any sense. Listen, look, if you're going to build the UFL, you might as well embrace the UFL and stop trying to lean on everything that you did in past leagues that no longer exist. The only thing I want to see recognized from the past leagues is like player stats, records, and like who won championships, maybe. And also they can reference old clips that happened maybe from games if they want for media use or whatever. I really, really don't want to see the continued embracing of a rivalry that only lasted for like 2 years, but not really. And also for embracing 2 brands that are both kind of so far expired at this point by their own doing that it just makes more sense to build up from what you have if you're going to go down the route of embracing a new league name. Now, if they picked one or the other, I'd feel differently because then you're naming it after one of them. You're saying, okay, this is who we're going with. But they didn't do that. They picked a new league name. So just stop relying on it. Stop relying on your old league names, and just build what you have.
What is it? Stock Speed Tech here. It's going to be the Gamblers. It's still, I mean, Mike is saying like it's still TBD, and I here's the XFL Homer man. I call it the Gamblers. Like I said, I tweeted last night, as long as I breathe and have a pulse in my body, I will never call the Gamblers the Roughnecks. I think that is, and I've had a lot of comments about that, which I didn't think were necessarily, or I was kind of surprised. And they're like, well, it's still the rough, like it doesn't, the players and the coaches, it's still the brand. I'm like, yeah, but when the brand's only been around for 2 seconds, it's kind of hard. Pat, thoughts on that? Because we haven't had you involved. I know Andy and I kind of deep dove that, but like,
well,
the
it's
Fugazi Gambler Roughnecks.
It's the historic Gamblers brand,
but it's not unless you own a go-kart and drive around the lake in Michigan. It doesn't affect you.
But Jim Kelly, and and then I think there's Jim Kelly because anytime people talk about the historic brand of the Gamblers, I'm like, okay, name someone, and then they say Jim Kelly, and then I say okay, and they go, well, Jim Kelly, and I'm like, yeah, and then
yeah, no, and then
half these people don't even know who like Mouse Davis is, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it sounds cool like on the surface, but I'm willing to bet if and Reed, I talked to you about this, like if I went to a Houston Reddit page and I said, hey man, could you name 3 players from the Houston Roughnecks, and can you name 3 players from the Houston Gamblers? I would be willing to bet I would get more people talking about the Roughnecks because of the recency bias and whatnot. Now, on that flip side, we talk about, Houston's been there. They've been building this market, all this stuff. How many people actually care if it's the Gamblers or the Roughnecks? We're going to say on Twitter a lot, but like, I don't have that answer because I feel like it's going to be like 500 people who actually care.
I think the NFL cares when it comes to copyright. That's for sure.
No, but yeah,
are we? And then there's a comment here. Cade just like a bunch of USFL. Are we the USFL fanboys? I've never been accused of being a USFL fanboy.
That's a new one.
Andy, we did this deep dive. We had the comment here, Jared, and if this is a Jared I know from Facebook, I vehemently disagree, Jared. This is why I have a really hard time getting involved in college sports. I mean, I went to Gonzaga, so I don't have the football that everyone has, and I've fallen out of basketball. But I always had a hard time with basketball because we're recycling. But at least these brands and identities and traditions and everything have been around. I just can't imagine we're struggling so hard to get any sort of fan base and goodwill here, and then we're gonna screw you Roughnecks. Here this other team. We're just gonna give them the paint colors. I don't know, Andy. Do you have any updated thoughts? I very strongly feel about this.
Again, I think it's just pulling the rug out from underneath them. And look, will people forget about it in the coming years? Maybe. But for the time being, as a season ticket holder, I'd be really miffed at the fact that they did that. And it's really something that, again, look, it's the idea of building trust. It's the idea of, is this going to stick around for a while? And it's still undermining all of that. I don't care whether you think it doesn't matter or not if there's players or coaches. What matters is now, and what matters is trying to build goodwill with people who actually are trying to buy into your league. That's what we're talking about. It doesn't, you can argue about the logistics of who's on the staff and who's not. We're talking about building fundamental trust in the product. That's what we're talking about. And people who actually follow the Roughnecks, which we know, are going to be upset about it. They're going to be miffed by it. I mean, where's Wade? Where's John? Where's all the players from last year? Where's the staff? What the hell happened? People are going to be really confused by that, especially that's going to be questions they're going to start asking, and then they'll find out afterwards, and it's going to be really weird when they're like, wait, my head coach is in San Antonio now? What? That's since when? That's so. That's still, I feel, is the equivalent of pulling a fast one on your buddy. So that to me still undermines it, but. One other quick thing I wanted to say, moving on from that, I was thinking about in terms of rivalries. I mean, guys, we really missed a really easy opportunity at a rivalry here. We didn't talk about the fact that we have the greatest rivalry of all time, which is Reed and the DC fans versus the security guards at Audi Field. I mean, that's the real rivalry that we have to look forward to. That's the beer snake coalition versus the security staff at Audi Field is one of the most controversial rivalries of all time. Come on,
for my safety, I was removed for my safety. Comment here, and then let's talk a little football ops. Sharks asking about the rules. We kind of went through that. I don't know. I'm an XFL proponent. I think the kickoffs and things makes it unique. I don't think the USFL incentivized a lot of the going for 2 or 3 points and all that stuff. I will just say, the Mystery Downtown Brahmas biggest winners. We got Wade Phillips. Yeah, I tweeted that the other day, but I do feel like if the teams come out as we've expected with the 3 Houston and DC and St. Louis and all that, I will be a San Antonio Brahmas fan. Makes sense. I guess I'm the Rocks fanboy and all of that, but I got to support my boy AJ Smith, got to support Wade Phillips and all of that. And then, Andy and I, and we'll get Evan, we'll go down to the Riverwalk. We'll kind of do all that stuff again. See if I can keep Andy alive this time. In terms of, and did I lose? No, here we go. In terms of this, Max, and we'll kind of do the horn here. Keeping Russ involved, bringing Daryl in as Russ is the president and CEO. Daryl Johnson lead football ops. Makes sense to Q. We talked about, I think it was Ben Fisher's report that Russ Brandon would be the head person in terms of corporate there. But what do you make of kind of this structure?
If they keep Doug Whaley involved and they let Doug Whaley do the actual day-to-day, because if you recall, Mark Ross was never the day-to-day guy. He was the over-the-top guy who would handle interaction between football ops and the league and would handle a lot of the bigger stuff, like the big picture stuff. But Doug Whaley always ran day-to-day. He was the guy who was closer to making decisions on rules. I'd prefer that setup because, quite frankly, he has way more experience in that than Daryl does. And also he has more experience doing the player personnel for a whole league than Daryl does. So I'd really prefer that. And this hodgepodge makes it interesting because, we're talking about, Wade taking Hines' spot, for example, but theoretically they could still put the Gamblers staff in San Antonio because they've already fired their coach and then keep Wade at Houston. So just because Hines out, Wade still in does not necessarily, like, who knows how they're going to structure it. I actually think it would make a lot more sense to put the Gambler staff in San Antonio because they've already lost their coach. And then that way you can keep the entire Roughnecks identity in Houston and just let the Brahmas start over, because I think actually most San Antonio people wouldn't be that opposed to that because not like the Brahmas were that great or anything. They had great defense. But anyway, this is also up in the air, There's so much we don't know. And the little things we do know might be good, might be bad, but I don't know what to think of it. I'm not a huge fan of Daryl, but if the people under him can still do the job right, and if Russ can, be more forthcoming and more communicative to the public, then this can still work.
Pat, let's get your thoughts. Someone, Shark tweeted here, I guess we got a UFL ad on Fox, which I'm trying to see if I can go back on Fubo here. I don't know if I can get that pulled up. Pat, what do you think of, we like I said, we covered, people may not know, we covered every single episode of the USFL here last season.
We did, right?
What do you make here, Daryl being involved in all this?
I mean, keeping it consistent. Daryl's been around every spring league since 2019. There's always that rumor he tried to poach Bob Stoops because I believe he was his DPP or GM with the Arlington Renegades, or excuse me, the Dallas Renegades in 2020. I'm good with keeping Daryl around. I'm a little biased. I've met Russ Brandon a couple times, so keeping him as the figurehead. I agree to what Max was saying about having Mark Ross around as well. Obviously, Reed, the gentleman you interviewed, his name is escaping me. Giglio.
Giglio, yeah.
Bruce Gigolo. I always felt that he was kind of a calming presence with that, and I always felt a little bit more in step with, especially based off his interview that he did, and I really was actually looking it up the other day because I think you tweeted something with his name in it, or one of the documents had his name in it the other day. So I mean, I think it's weird because none of these guys have been good at this. and I don't want to come off as disrespectful, we haven't seen it like actually successfully like take off and take flight and everything like that. So I'm kind of just like, well, we have all these people who have had success in other avenues. No one's actually been successful in this since, I guess, the 60s, maybe, like we don't know what works to keep a sustainable, like, alternate football league. So it's like, let's just keep figuring this out, and hopefully we can get some money backing this. And there is obviously a need from a player development standpoint and everything like that, and the NFL isn't willing to shill that money out because they've proven they don't have to, because everyone else is like, no, I can make spring football work and whatnot. So there's a couple different avenues on my front about it in like my headspace, but in the end, I don't want to go with the mantra of if it's not broke, don't fix it, because if it wasn't broke, we wouldn't be having this merger. But at the same time, it's like, who else do we have that is capable of doing this, And it's not like these people are incapable. It's just figuring it out. And hopefully there's enough money to allow that privilege of just kind of until we do figure out what actually works.
Talk about fortuitous timing here. Hopefully I don't get a copyright strike. I had just pulled up. I got the USFL ad here if we want to watch it. Hopefully this works. Do you think I'll get flagged for that? I don't know. It's a commercial.
Yeah, I mean, I had mine up there, and then I would take it down. Like when I was doing my stream, I had it for 10 seconds, would take it away. So
let's see if this works there. Can you hear that?
Yep.
XFL and the United States Football League have announced plans to merge.
A move that ensures spring football is here to stay.
This is an iconic moment.
An excitement from fans all across the country.
Let's ball out, baby!
This will bring together two of the best spring leagues we've ever seen.
It's a win for football and for fans.
The United Football League has arrived.
There's no doubt spring just got stronger.
Here we go.
There you go. What do you think? Andy, I'll give you the floor first because we're going around the horn.
Well, first of all, if Emmanuel Ocho is involved with this, no, thank you. Noted Herbie hater Emmanuel Ocho can go watch something else. No, like I no, I mean it's cool. It's again, it's it's the standard template of announcing your league and who's involved with it. Here's my thing about it, and we talked about this with last time Colin Cowherd announcing the teams for the USFL, which was very cookie cutter in terms of all the announcements. If you're going to talk about the league, and this goes for all fans and everybody, please watch the games. For the love of all that is holy, please actually watch the games and don't just talk about it and have put people on TV that say they watch it and don't actually watch it and are just promoting it. I want to actually get analysts and people who do this for a living and have people who watch this. And if we're talking about content creation, I mean, you have YouTube channels that are devoted to this. Get somebody involved and have somebody who actually is able to watch the games and break down and watch the film and understand why these players are doing what they're doing. So that's just my thing. It's my reaction is just based on who I saw in the commercial. But as far as the actual presentation, yeah, I mean, it works.
It kind of a very, and I'm a wedding videographer. They're very interesting editing here of kind of everything that's happened over the last none of that was from today, or I mean, it was all kind of hacked together things that it said before. Max, you seem perplexed here. What are your thoughts?
I'm laughing because I'm looking at those tweets. I'm like, are those real tweets?
I know. I'm trying to get.
I'm like, who are these people? I don't know. Maybe they are, but whatever. I think they use some GPT software. Anyway, other than that, it just feels very weird that you get an ad like this saying so much about all that, and then they don't even mention some of the stuff happening tomorrow in the ad, and it feels like that was a missed opportunity. And then also they don't clear up anything about being in stadiums or anything in any communication they've had publicly so far. All that as a whole has been a little disappointing. But in terms of the actual ad stuff, I mean, it's fine. I think it'd be funny if we had the brothers Acho representing Fox and ESPN, because they used to work together in ESPN and Emmanuel left. So now you'd have Sam and Emmanuel And also, if they're going to have it on game day tomorrow, imagine if we actually finally had some kind of XFL pregame game day show, at least for kickoff, because it really feels like if they're going to bother to do it on game day, I mean, you've already got your sample right there of what the reaction could look like if you just do the same thing, but with actual XFL and UFL, USFL fans, spring football fans. I don't know. I don't want to get on that tangent, but I have hopes, and then I know what's actually going to happen, so I'm not going to dwell on it.
Pat, what are your thoughts on this? Yeah, Robert saying here the ad seems to indirectly confirm some of the teams. Yeah, you get that. Maybe I'll scroll through it here on quiet mode here. But Pat, what do you make of this?
I mean, I'm pretty I'm in Andy's corner about like anti-Emmanuel Acho. I kind of feel like he's one of those guys who just, you know, when you're told when you're growing up, just because you speak louder doesn't mean you're actually correct. Like, I mean, yeah, let's hold that FB fanatic real quick and see if that's an actual Twitter.
Yeah, at real FB baller, September 29th.
Dude, like I always felt the same way. It's like some of these guys talking about this stuff, they don't, you know, actually care as much. But like, you know, Josh Lewin was a guy that like came up and like talked to you personally, I believe, right, on your show, and he was a pretty humble guy, and like he obviously like kind of, I don't want to say he knew his place, but he was like, you know, like I know that this is new for me and whatnot. So, but then there were guys on like the XFL Today show that were like, oh, this guy is really good, and you're like, okay, what makes him good?
Yeah.
And you're like, what do you mean? And it's like, what makes him good? Is it like his ability to like switch his hips well? And it's like, you know, he's from this school, and it's like, yeah, he went to that school, but he played 3 downs. He actually went to like another school.
Yeah.
And like, and the thing is, dude, is like, I don't want to get edgy here, and people, you know, will be like, oh, Pat, you know a lot about this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but it's not that I'm like going out on these far adventures. Like, it's a Google search, and then an all 22, like it's putting in the effort, man. And it's kind of goes back to a conversation we had about some of these stat tweets that I put out, you know, during the season. And it's like, oh, that's crazy. And it's like, it's really not, man. It took me 7 minutes to do it. Like, I'm traveling right now. I'm watching the game on my phone. This guy, he's been playing in all these leagues. How many yards does he have? Oh, he's the only one that's actually ever broke 1,000 yards through these 3 leagues. It's not a crazy ask for people to like care about it, especially, you know, them getting paid like a decent amount to do it. So I don't know. We'll see. But at the same time, more people putting eyes on this with, you know, bigger followings than us, the better, right? Because then, you know, maybe some dude from Memphis or Birmingham is like, you know what, I really want a football team.
Yeah, no, I know. Shane here saying commercial sounds like no. I think it's a tough sell. I mean, Mike had said that to me when we were talking before. Like they're really trying to get, you know, how do we market this is not a kind of a negative thing. Complaining, not knowing, saying no. I mean, no one's complaining. I mean, we know, spoiler alert, we know the stadiums and we know the team names. No, I don't think anyone was. I was just kind of curious how they were approaching the marketing, like how we're branding this. I mean, I think it's cute. I think if you don't know kind of the history of all this, I think they're trying to sell it like it seems cool. We got Ocho and kind of all that stuff on there and the Colin Cowards of the world. Andy, any other thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you know, back to I want to comment really quick on Max's point about, you know, the expectation of wanting to have a pregame show, which, you know, I know that hasn't happened yet. And to Pat, and bouncing off of Pat's point, which is know your stuff. At the end of the day, that's all we want. We just want people who care and actually put in the effort and actually want to be better about this and not just having some placative or some general template in terms of actually covering these leagues. Like, look, the reason I think we all come here and say all these things and that we raise our eyebrows at certain things is because we want it to get better. I want that. I want everybody to up their game. One of the guys that I think of that I really wish would stay around as far as the Fox side goes, like I don't care for the talk shows. Like if you want to throw an ad on Undisputed or Colin Cowherd, fine. I don't expect those guys to actually watch the games. I really don't. Sorry. But someone like in the broadcast booth, Joel Klatt, I thought did an excellent job of actually trying his best and doing his research and actually working very hard on what he does for a living. And obviously he does a lot of that in college football, but he actually does his work in the USFL too. And I really appreciated that. I think the XFL does not understand how well they had it 3 years ago when they had Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson as a duo. Like, that's outstanding. Like, they have that kind of talent in your booth is fantastic. We need to keep those guys around. You need to keep guys like Tom Luganville. You need to keep guys in the booth that actually care and want to put in the work to do this. You need to keep those people around. You got to find a way, because it's easy to just have a general boiler template and just. Also, here's the other thing. Are they going to start to do away with this guy could be really good in the NFL? Like, can we avoid that topic as well? Because I know that was a big thing about ESPN and how they were trying to basically jettison guys off into the next league. Can they find a way to not have that be the default point or argument every single time that a player makes a good impression? Like, they got to find a way around that. You just need to talk about who the player is, where they come from, what they're doing well, and why it's working in this league. You got to work on that.
But all that stuff, even when they do, like, people getting all excited about this draft, and there was questions earlier. Remember, it was going to be the 27th, and it was going to be the 29th. Mike's saying it's going to be the 5th. It makes more sense than doing it before we get the official announcement. Like I said, I never really believed that. A couple comments, and I know Max has something he wants to bring up. We had a question here. What is the bad part of the merger? Getting rid of 8 teams and jobs and coaching and staff and all that stuff, I would say, would be part of that. And Shane, who I appreciate from just CFL coverage, who commented on that. Sam said the opening game in Arlington or Birmingham. To me, it's Arlington just because of the logistics of it. That is the interesting aspects, the XFL before, and we did the hub model and we're flying in, and it's easy to get from Dallas to a lot of these places. Birmingham's tough to get to. Andy knows this. I know this. We were there, and Pat obviously traveling up and down those parts. Max, I was corresponding with one of our people before, but yes, no official league accounts yet. I know there's a Facebook page. That's a long story. I've talked about it on here. I'm working to regain access to my Facebook account, but in terms of Twitter and all of that stuff, not on there. Max, what do you make of this?
It just does not make it feel put together, does it?
No.
I mean, now, for all we know, maybe they just keep both accounts. Maybe they just keep both accounts they already have. They turn one into UFL. Maybe they turn the XFL account into the UFL account. And then you know how originally there was an XFL on Fox account for the 2020? Maybe they turned the USFL account into UFL on Fox or something, because then the Fox can hang on to their account personally. I don't know. Either way, it does not make me feel great whenever you see stuff like that. Definitely agree with Andy about it was a really high quality when we had Lil Baby KK and the Greg and Nate on the broadcast, and then now these days we get some tech Longhorn Network doing our broadcasts, and you're like, why? What are we doing here? Or guys who can't talk about, they have no idea what the actual playoff scenarios are, and you just feel embarrassed for your entire league when you're but anyway, there's a lot of holes they have to fill, a lot of things that need to be fixed, just even from a TV product perspective and from a branding perspective, from a communications perspective, that still all these things leave so much to be desired, marketing, all that. So just so much left to do, isn't there?
So we have a comment here. This is why I do like doing these live stuff. Elijah, I think it's going to be Birmingham. The Texas Rangers are opening the season versus the Chicago Cubs that weekend. Yeah, we had talked about that before the March 30th baseball. So Andy, get ready to speak Birminghamese, buddy, or Birminghamese, buddy. Hey, we run it back, man. Andy, what do you think? I don't really want to go to Birmingham.
Old stomping grounds. Well, okay, look, if they've at least cleaned up some of the construction around the stadium, then great, fantastic. But look, I don't mind the stadium. I like Protective Stadium. It's just the surrounding area was just weird. Like, to me, there just wasn't a lot of life around that. Here's the other thing, and I know people. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I just wanted to point something out. To Pat's point, yes, me and Reed went to the most attended game in Birmingham Stallions history, or at least the new iteration of Birmingham Stallions. It had to be. But here's the thing that really maybe caught us off guard, is that the crowd was very slow trickling in. Like, it wasn't at capacity when kickoff happened. And it started to kind of crescendo towards the second quarter. But then in the second half, we noticed that people started to kind of trickle back out. Like, it was made to be an event. I know it was the first kickoff game, so maybe people were just there out of curiosity. Here's the thing, and this is why I think it's important with ticketing is how invested can you get people to be in what they buy as far as the product, and as far as are they buying tickets and are they going to stay at the games? Like, are they going to be able to stay in there and not just treat it like it's just kind of a throwaway item? Be like, okay, well, I showed up for my 30 minutes, I'm out of here. You don't want that to happen, obviously. I know the whole point of the USFL was the low price ticketing and being able to get people into the stadiums and the cheap, affordable way of doing that, which was great. But you also need to give incentive for people to stay around. And I think part of that is pricing. That's obviously a whole nother logistical argument. But look, if it's in Birmingham, fine. It's the matchup. It's more about the matchup that I'm interested in. Like, as far as those two teams playing, that's fantastic. Just as far as the traveling goes, I mean, look, I went to DFW 3 separate times this year, and it was very seamless for me flying out from where I was, and it was for 3 separate occasions. So for me, going to Dallas is much easier. Going to Birmingham is a little bit more of a trek, and I think that's the case for a lot of people because it has a smaller airport. So logistically, it would make more sense to be in Arlington, but if it's in Birmingham, make peace with it.
We'll run through the comments here. I think at the top of the hour, we'll kind of get out of this so people can go about their days and everything else. And I would like to watch the Commanders try to tank here against the 49ers. But I really need the Patriots came out strong. Really need the Patriots to kind of get the Patriots upset of the Bills would really make my day. Pat, comments on this? Birmingham, anything else? Any of the other comments we've gone through?
I'm running through the Twitter feeds, and obviously Twitter is just one aspect of social media. So the XFL Twitter account has 380,000, 81,000, creeping up on almost 382,000 compared to the USFL, which is 128. Battlehawks lead the way with almost 113,000, and the highest USFL count is the Panthers, which is stagnated about like 41,000. Roughnecks, Renegades, and Brahmas. Brahmas are at 17,000, with the Roughnecks and Renegades at over 65 each, with the DC Defenders at in the 70,000 mark. I know these things might be like a little minute, but like if you're trying to grow the league and everything like that, like I'd like to believe that they might keep the XFL as like the main one and then use the USFL one as like the retweet one to like kind of bump your impressions and whatnot. I mean, I keep the other Twitter pages also active for the air quote dormant teams as like free retweets and whatnot, because now you can kind of merge a couple of these. I don't know how many people follow the USFL Twitter page that don't follow the XFL Twitter page, but now that the Fox Twitter pages are involved, maybe you can get the XFL one to 500,000 because they weren't retweeting XFL stuff for the last couple of years. I mean, this might be a little bit me just diving down the rabbit hole on something that really doesn't matter, but just something to keep in the back of the heads. I think a lot of this stuff matters, especially when these pages tweet out the players' handles and whatnot. I always found that pretty cool because, football is temporary. Granted, the leagues have seen almost 200 guys get signed since 2022 from both these leagues combined. But, if one of these guys can go viral on a hurdle and then, make some money on the back end, I think that stuff kind of matters, because if you can't go to the NFL, but you can get like, hey, we saw you on the USFL thing or the XFL thing, like, now you have a couple more impressions. For some of these guys who didn't take their academia seriously, maybe they can carve out the podcast or something like that to do something. That stuff matters. I know we talked about it with the arena guys as well,
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm kind of looking through here, and even all of it, like this is why I'm glad like we don't have it's the Markcast, and like Paul and I kind of got away from the XFL Markcast back in the day. Like even Mark rebranding the XFL News Hub Twitter to the UFL News, like we're doing this. I just you kind of I don't know. I get weary about all this stuff. Max, thoughts, and we'll go back to Andy.
Yeah, it's clumsy. It's all a little clumsy, isn't it? I mean, The other thing I'm wondering about is, do they pay for the gold check for the new UFL account? And because the XFL account doesn't have one, the USFL account does. I'm thinking Fox can just get it arranged to get it, probably because they're big enough to just make it happen. And so, because you'll see people making like digs at the XFL for having less impressions or whatever, but a lot of it is because Twitter will inflate the presence of a page if it has a gold check.
But can't you pay for that? Can't you get the branding paid now? I thought it's all pay to play now.
Yeah, you can buy a gold check, but also if you're big enough, sometimes Twitter, like if you're a Fox brand, for example, Twitter might just toss you a gold check because you're I doubt, for example, like Nintendo is paying for a gold check. But yeah, I'm sure the XFL under their old ownership would have had to pay for the gold check, and now maybe Fox can just get it for them. And so that should help boost the impressions of the larger following page, and overall should help the presence a little bit. But overall, it's more on them to do a better job of marketing than anything. The reason why their relevance online has been not up to standard, and in anybody's opinion, really, for what it should be.
Pat, go for it.
I just got a text from a game day support person from the Battlehawks, and they still haven't been told anything right now. So
in terms of
just, hey, it's official now. That's it. So, I mean, obviously where I live, this person is air quotes safe, but it's they just, hey, stand by to stand by. So I don't know if you can call them a league employee, a seasonal employee, whatever you want to call them, but that's just something that came up on my thing right now.
Max shaking his head, and I have a question for Andy.
Yeah, I'm just shaking my head because I'm like, man, this is such a mess. I despise the communication failures. It's so bad all the time. Every time they can make an official announcement and still nobody actually knows anything.
Yeah.
It's just so frustrating. And they're going to go on College Game Day tomorrow, kick off in basically 3 months. And people in St. Louis who are supposed to be operating on game day have no idea when they're supposed to be working, or even that the merger is happening according to the league themselves.
Just a quick programming note on here. Mike is sharing this in. Let me see if I can get this up. We talked about this, but just timing wise, life planning. The Rock will be announcing the UFL team cities for the 2024 UFL season during the 11 a.m. hour Eastern time of the College Game Day tomorrow. Like I said, as noted, I will be en route to the Winter Classic. So maybe if I can get a short out on my phone before we leave, but life gets in the way sometimes. But Andy and I will be back. If Pat or whoever, anyone is welcome to join, but we'll figure out a time on Tuesday for that. But life gets in the way. But if you're curious about that, at least we know the 11. I don't know how long that whole thing runs, but the 11 a.m. hour. But for all we know, that could be 11:55. Like today, it doesn't. Just because they say 9, it doesn't go right at 9. Andy, thoughts on this or kind of anything else here as we? I think we're going to round down here pretty soon.
Real nice of them to make that announcement following New Year's. Really good timing on that part. But look, I will be most likely watching that announcement. My Oregon Ducks will be playing in the Fiesta Bowl that morning and hopefully trouncing Liberty University at about 10 a.m. So that'll be following that announcement. So I will be up regardless because that's going to be going on tomorrow. So like you, Reed, I have a big day for my boys tomorrow as well. And so, I mean, look, I think you and I and all of us know who these teams are for the most part and what's going to happen. There's been a lot of speculation. Again, the announcement's going to be couched as opportunity, even though, as we mentioned, there's a lot of teams and players and coaches that are going to be losing their jobs, but it's going to be what it is. And I'm sure it'll just be the teams and nothing else. So it is what it is. But I'm sure Pat McAfee will be, slapping the Rock on the back and congratulating him as he always does.
Is that his venture tomorrow? Pat will be on that as well. Right. I mean, is that all that? I don't follow any of the College Game Day stuff. So Pat will be on there.
Well, I mean, Pat McAfee's always on. He's always part of the game day stuff. So they've got that, it's got that synergy going on
this year anyway, because he's quitting after this year. He said.
No, he said he's back. He said Herb Street. I didn't see that.
His mind.
Yeah,
he keeps changing his mind. I don't know. I thought he said he's quitting. I don't know.
Jay, I promise you there will be no schedule tomorrow. I think that we're rolling this out. I think we're it's one step at a time, but I do not imagine here on New Year's Day we're going to get the schedule. Max, comments on that?
Yeah, look, if you've been paying attention to the way these things are run, there's no way we're getting a schedule tomorrow with how this is being run. I mean, no way. The game day staff in St. Louis has no idea when they're supposed to be working, and they're just going to announce a schedule tomorrow morning. No way.
No, so sorry. I mean, it'd be nice, but we lived through all this last year with the Field of Dreams and the Cashman Fields of it all. But I don't. What a time to be alive here. And then the other thing, I guess, last thing here, because we're trailing. Yeah, we'll get out of here. Trophies, Pat. What do you want to see for the trophy? Do we want to keep XFL, USFL? Each division has its trophy, and then we have a new one, or does the USFL? Because I think that says something. I mean, or is it totally brand new? And we got to say this. We got to.
I think you keep if we stay pat with the XFL USFL division, I think we keep it. I don't think that's a crazy thing to go on about if it's going to be the XFL and USFL divisions. I mean, keep it, support that local business that you've been using, that they use for the XFL, because at least they know what to do. And then I don't know, maybe you should just make the emoji with a giant U of the shaking hands as the main trophy. But I would keep the same thing for that. I wonder who actually owns that trophy now, like the XFL division trophies or and whatnot. Is that just
the north and south, the little the tiny ones, not the main next one.
That's showing at Bart Andrus's house, and he's just like, yeah, I have this.
Andy, Andy, you didn't seem so enthused. What do you new trophy? You don't like the X?
Listen, I'm going to petition right now to make this trophy a giant Pop-Tart, and if they don't, I'm going to riot. That's where I stand. But no, I mean, if you want to keep the trophies the same ones for the USFL and XFL divisions, fine, make it part of that and rename. I don't know if they'll ever get around to renaming them. Obviously, there's no camaraderie like Vince Lombardi Trophy or anything like that. But if you're going to have the championship game between the two sides, then yeah, you're going to have to remake the trophy altogether and make something completely new. I don't know what on earth that would look like. But you would conceivably you would make a new trophy design. Where do we stand, by the way, on the two for the USFL XFL? Did we ever decide which one we like more? Because it seems like that always went back and forth.
Well, in terms of the trophies, I think the USFL trophy looks a lot better. Am I in the minority there?
No,
but you can't drink out of it.
Well, the XFL when they had to flip it upside down, right, and then they drank out of it. Yeah, I don't know. I like the USFL one. That was one that I was happy to let. I was happy to let the USFL guys take that W.
I lost my ability to care about whose trophy is better so long ago. I do think for the sake of the identity of the leagues that they need new trophies, but that has more to do with just building a brand and identity than me thinking one trophy is better than the other.
I felt
go for it, Pastor.
The XFL trophy was too much of we're trying to reinvent the league and we're doing new stuff, and I'm just like, bruh, it's a trophy. Make it look cool. Make it say your championship on it. I don't need all this goofy stuff. But I don't know. Maybe we'll get united by player 54. Well,
Ken has it. I think we're talking the ads here. We didn't show a good picture of the ball. None of it, all of that, all the footage is all repurposed. So anything you're seeing, I think we're going to get the same logo or the logos. I think we're going to get the same uniforms, or we're going to get all that stuff. I don't think there's enough time in the world to kind of do all that. But anything in that footage is all Max comments. But any of that is all carried over from some piece.
I really do hope they keep the Under Armour uniforms, though. I would like to see the USFL teams brought in, get Under Armour uniforms and get and maybe get a little redesign, because and honestly I'd rather they just redesign all the uniforms and start over, but
they're not going to do that this year. Do you think there's possibly time to do that?
Heck if I know. But what I do know is that if they keep it as it is, and they have these different styles, it's going to look weird and clash. It's going to look unprofessional.
No, it's not if you have the XFL division versus the USFL division, and then you just.
But we-
I really think it's. I think you just because people know it's the merged league. I think that and they you. I don't know. Am I that Pat? Am I that crazy?
Man, I don't know. Rest in peace, Blob. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I think.
And Dave the Wave.
Yeah, I think Blob walked so that Pop Tart Man could run. So I think I don't really. I'm happy to lose the Blob now. I think we
You
can
can use all these like little hand signals now. They can all be like new whatchamacallit, new hand signals to signal in plays. Like you go Blob, Wave, General. Like that would be what I would do as in stars. Star would be a safety blitz. Wave would be weak side linebacker. Blob, blitz in the B gap. And then what's the other one? The General. I don't know.
Maybe the league can hire for all the teams. Connor Stallions can be a consultant for the hub for all the teams.
Listen, guys. I had my send off earlier this year with the Pac-12. I watched all those mascots wave goodbye to me. It felt like it felt like children graduating from kindergarten. It was like, hi guys. So whatever league I support apparently just dies. So.
Last thing here, and then we'll get out. Interesting. They just tweeted this the XFL, but kind of this UFL. I mean, I know this is just kind of mocked up right now, but I don't know.
It.
Looks all right.
I like it. It's gonna look good on the carpet at the Dome, which won't have an opening day because motocross.
Yeah, Andy, thoughts?
It really does look like the UFC logo. The more I look at it, It really does have that same type of font. But I actually do like the inverted. They kind of remind me of boomerangs. That's how I look at it. Yeah, it looks like two boomerangs on opposite sides of it. I actually kind of like that. Okay, maybe the F's a little bit different, but there's something unmistakable about it that just screams UFC to me.
Well, it's slanted. It's a bold italics. No, but I was told that they're not boomerangs. I was told that they were the X's of the XFL.
But you're Okay, but now you're inverting the opportunity, right?
Yeah,
if you're turning them upside down.
Opportunity.
I'm 99%
going in opposite directions.
I'm 99% sure they took this from the Big Ten championship game logo. That Fox
good
has,
call.
because this is I mean, it's not the same, but it is exactly the same style of logo. Because I guarantee you, Fox made that because it's supposed to look like a football.
Because they have full-time employees right now.
You like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
It's not original. I mean, it's certainly not. No. I don't know. I
think it's fun. Like,
whatever.
Yeah, are you buying the hat with that? At least with the weird XFL one, it was like just kind of a clothing brand, right? It was just like, oh, I got like, what is XFL? Like, oh, this is the new. I don't see anyone. I don't know. I don't want a shirt with that.
I don't. I'm good. Like, I'll go and get my couple. I'll get like a Battlehawk shirt, for the new redesign for a couple gifts, and I'll buy something from Royal Retros to support Dustin. But like, I'm weird about merch. You know what I mean? Like, I run through like the only thing I really want, 3/4 zip. You give me a 3/4 zip, the Under Armour feeling, especially with the hoodie, especially when I'm coaching and whatnot. That's my thing. Give me a 3/4 zip. Your boy's happy. It could pretty much say anything on it. So I'll rock it.
Commanders are tied with the 49ers. What are we doing with our lives? This is the last thing. Ken's just asked this like 5 times in the chat, so I want to just make sure we get to this before we get out, not to hold everyone too long. Government agreement. Do you think in the government agreement, the league had to have a plan to add teams to get to a certain number to make the government happy? It was my understanding that doing the hub format and having the local people working kind of supplemented that. Max, any other understanding of that? Like, I mean, you can say how you want. There's going to be, that's why the whole Hines Ward thing of like Mike Mitchell reporting, Hines didn't want to take $600,000 this year and then get a pay cut next year to be with the Brahmas. And that's why Wade Phillips, like, take the money now. I mean, there's no, any of that. But I mean, Max, they can have plans all they want, but I don't. Any other stuff on this?
The government, there's no way the government is making them add teams, because otherwise, the whole reason this league even made it here was because they were allowed to cut down teams. I don't think the government is going to make them add teams, because otherwise the league would be dead. So no, I don't think there's any forcing of adding teams, adding roster size, even not unless there's a union that makes them add players. I'm hoping they'll keep XFL roster sizes and not USFL roster sizes, and that's going to be a big deal because depth will be a problem if they keep the roster small.
Well, and there were comments earlier about salaries and where you're not going to increase salaries because you have no competition. At least you could carry more players on there. And like you said, they kind of add depth to that. Pat, anything else? I'll give it to Andy and then we'll do one more. We'll get out.
I mean, what we have to always remember about that salary comment was that was from someone who's no longer employed by the league, right? Because I don't think the USFL, LMLP, PA or whatever, like, ever confirmed anything. So like that was just kind of the Vegas Vipers president of team ops doing the Vegas team a solid. So like while that information was obviously extremely important, it wasn't an official statement from the league. I think that was more of a, hey, just giving you guys in the know type thing. And so like while that was great content and great clickbait and all that goofy stuff, like it regardless, it wasn't like, gospel and whatnot. I also kind of see the government not really caring that much. I could see like this coming across like John Fetherman's or Lindsey Graham's desk and him being like, what am I dealing? What bill do I have to what? Get over here, intern. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you guys deal with this, or it could have been one of those when they package these bills into like ridiculous, the bill will say like something completely irrelevant, and then they'll be like, in the fine print, XFL-USFL merger nonsense that it's like coupled into like funding, Ukraine stuff or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't think the government cares as much as like, I think it had to do with something, but I don't think it's like was our senators and top priority by any mean. And I don't know. I think the government thing was important to bring up, but I don't think it was like, yep, you can't do this unless you keep 50% or whatever. I don't think they care.
Yeah. Any thoughts? And then I have a little breaking news here before we get out. This is exciting.
I was just going to say, I love that Pat brought up Lindsey Graham because that was the exact joke I made. I think a month ago when they had that photo passing around of Danny the Rock and Russ sitting in that room with all the senators, and me thinking, just kind of like thinking about the concept of them trying to explain to some of the senators about the concept behind a three-point try and their kickoff style, and they're just sitting there being like, "Sorry, what? Why is this relevant? Like,
why is the TV guy here?" Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like Lindsey Graham. Like, anyone got any questions? Lindsey Graham's like, "So did you do your stunts for like Jumanji or like?" How many, like from Painting Game where Anthony Mackie's like, how many grams of protein do you eat a day? Like Lindsey Graham just asking like, no, can we get focused on the kickoff for player safety? And he's like, so like when you were playing Clemson back in the day, what you see about this guy? And it's just like, oh yes.
How did they keep you suspended when you were doing the Tooth Fairy?
Real quick, Max, what is the XFL-USFL roster sizes? And I have a little breaking news here, and then we'll get out.
Breaking news.
You're going to remind me, but I think it wasn't it 45 active for the XFL and then 50 total, 50. So 5 inactive.
Yeah,
and then
51 for XFL because of the quarter. They did the quarter. Both leagues did the quarterback inactive but dressed type thing.
Yeah, but I thought that was included in the active roster, not inactive. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway,
here, check this out here before we get out. I keep trying to get out of here. Tim just sent this over. Hey, we got to look at the UFL ball here. Big Game USA. I mean, it's on the Fox set.
All right.
Bold. Yeah, we don't have Danny Garcia's signature on it. Here, Max, initial thoughts will go around here.
I'm glad that it's the NFL football, but has the logo on it very large.
Just real quick, someone take the Sharpie.
Yeah, and we need
silver Sharpie.
Yeah, yep.
Andy, thoughts on? And this is bold.
Yeah, figuratively and literally. Yeah.
Andy, what do you think?
I I want my X's back. Damn it! I want my X's at the end of the football. Give me them back. There was nothing wrong with those. Those are like I still want my like individually team colored X's on the end of the footballs. Like just give that back, please.
I want my chips. I want my chip. And I want David Putney because I said so.
I want my lasers.
There you go. This has gone off the rails here. Like I said, so maybe we'll get a little shorts going tomorrow. Action, Winter Classic. If you're like and subscribe. If you're not, I know John Lewis joined as a channel member here at the beginning of the stream. I don't even think I can get back to that with all of that now. But, I think it's like $1 a month support. So it makes me feel good. Yeah, I can't even get back to where that was. But you can join, become a new member. That's exciting here. Be a fan of that. I got that here. Where was it? Pops up the dang thing. But anyway, highlights your comments and all that stuff. It's fun. Here we go. So do that, become a member, like and subscribe. Yeah, Andy and I will be here. We'll figure out Tuesday, something with that. But God bless everyone. Stay safe. New Year's. Let's hope Commanders can figure this out here today. Get this loss going. And then, if you have any just prayer in your heart, Kraken, big game tomorrow against the Vegas Golden Knights. Eyes of the world on this Winter Classic. So I don't think I think we're like 6-1 against Vegas. So just, thoughts in your heart, but appreciate everyone. And anything else before I get out? We're all good.
I was laughing. I can't believe like this one random dude on social media was trying to joke that the game was going to be played indoors with the roof closed at the stadium. And I thought that was horrible that people were trying to say that whenever obviously they were just trying to protect it from any conditions before the game.
They're just building the thing, but also it wasn't, they're like, oh, you're announcing, like it was just the Kraken tweeting the photo out. It was like, hey, 3 days, like it wasn't even like this is the official press photo of the thing. It was the Kraken, like, hey, this is coming up. So yeah, David, Happy New Year, Pat, everyone else. Let's get out of here. And now I'm totally lost. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Breaking.